relationship between soil and plant nutrients is poor. So this is related to the plant uptake of nutrients in the soil. So you'd rather go and taste plant tissues to give you a more accurate representation of the nutrient status of your plants. And petiole samples are the ones that you generally do. They have done it with leaf tissue, like the interveinal sort of tissue, but they find that the petioles give you a better indication. The problems with petioles is they're really small, so you need to collect hundreds of them to send to the lab. So the sampling, you're going to take obviously a lot of samples again to represent your block, and you're going to take about 100 to 200 petiole samples per sampling point, okay? Because the lab needs a lot of tissue, and the leaf petioles are very small, so you need to take a lot of them for them to be able to run the analysis. But it gives you a very good indication of the nutrient status of your vine, okay? This is normally done at around flowering, so 80% capful. The reason that they do this is that you have enough time to take your samples and send them to the lab. They can do the analysis and feed you back the information, and you have enough time to make any changes before you go into that ripening phase. Okay, so you could do it later, like for raisin, but that doesn't give you a lot of time to make any changes. So most people will do it at around flowering, just to give you enough time if there's a problem. If you need to add any sort of fertilizer, you have enough time to make a plan. So petiole samples are taken from opposite the most basal bunch on a shoot, and you take about 100 to 200 to provide enough tissue. These go to the lab, and the important thing is that these samples should be representative. They should be the same variety, the same rootstock, same age, from same vigor spots, same management practices. So you can't just go over your whole farm and just take random leaves from everywhere. You know, the nitrogen status of your Chardonnay is not going to be the nitrogen status of your cab. So you need to take representative samples of that block. Okay, you can't just take random samples over your whole farm. This does make it work intensive, but it is a very useful and important thing to do, and a lot of people do it. At the conference, there was this really cool stand, and I can't remember the name of it. I have pamphlets, but they have software that takes all of your data and integrates it and puts it in one place, and you can overlay it. So they take soil data like pHs, CEC, water, all of that stuff. They take nutrients in your soil, they take nutrients in your plants, and they plot it on a map of your block, and with colors. So like high nitrogen will be red, low nitrogen will be blue, and you can see it nicely on your block where there's lots of nitrogen, where there's a little bit of nitrogen. And then you can overlay soil water and see, oh, but the low nitrogen one is where it's drier and the high nitrogen is where it's wetter, for example. So you can overlay all of your different data and then start seeing like patterns. So this is the type of stuff we're moving to, is more software-based things. So people that are taking your data, making these kinds of softwares that you can use to help you make decisions and see exactly what's going on in your farm. I'm going to try, because I asked them very nicely if they can set up a demo account for me, so we can have a look at it in the res school, because I think that would be quite cool to see how it works. But that's definitely the way stuff is going now, more software, more sitting at the computer, which is great because it means you don't have to go into the field so much. You can sit at home, have coffee, and on your phone. You know, I'm like, oh, we need to irrigate, and you tell your phone, tell the robots to switch on, and you can do that. So it's making it a lot easier for farmers. Very, very nice. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Right. So this is the type of thing that you would get for like petiole sampling. So this is just, again, from that little book. And this is showing you the types of ranges of the different nutrients in your vines. It's important to note that these ranges are for commercial, high-yielding, irrigated vineyards. So again, it's going to depend what your farming practices are. These might shift a bit, but it does give you sort of a good indication. So here it tells you, if we look at nitrogen again, if your petiole samples are sending you back values less than 0.7, you know that those vines are deficient. If it's 0.8 to 1.1, we know that that vine is good. We don't need to worry about nitrogen because it's in an adequate level. So this just gives you an idea of the ranges. Please just note the units that they use. So percentage, milligrams per kilogram, milligrams per kilogram down there. So just make sure that you read the whole table and understand the units that they use. But it does give you a cool idea of the ranges, and this is the type of stuff you get back from the lab. So they'd give you a number, and they'd tell you where it fits in, and you would be able to see if your vines had enough of that specific nutrient or not. Yeah. Okay. So you'll probably see a lot of these types of testing in the future, so it's good to have some knowledge of them, so that's why I'm just introducing them to you. So again, in your groups, just quickly talk about the advantages and disadvantages of those two types of testing. So I have told you, so I just want to see if you remember. Okay, so just the advantages and disadvantages of soil testing versus petiole testing.
The soil test is going to be able to test what's in the soil, but it might not be what's available for the plant, and the PTO might tell you obviously what the plant's taking up, but not what's available in the soil. I guess soil testing. It's just like, one's a good representative of one, one's a good representative of the other, but they're not equal to each other also. PBL test isn't going to tell you, perhaps, oh yeah, your vine has adequate nitrogen, but your soil could also be nutrient deficient. I don't know, it's a bit of a tough one, eh? How to compare them.
But how to conduct the soil test?
So soil testing will be like taking core samples. So go around, take your random core samples from around the vineyard, compile them together, and then send them off to the lab. Similar thing with the PDL testing, you will collect your PTLs from around the vineyard in random spots, and then also send those all off to the lab.
I'm busy recording.
You want to tap out? I think
Good recording. We're going to lose Robbie now.
yeah, you can swap out from there if you like.
Oh, soon. Tim wants to do some editing on it. Yeah. Thanks for doing it. Okay, so quickly, what are the advantages of soil sampling over petiole sampling and other way around? Or what are the benefits, let me say, of soil sampling?
Soil sampling is obviously going to tell you like what you've got available in the soil, and also like what you can test your like pH and find what nutrients are available for your plant at that time.
Yeah. I'm going to tap in with petioles. I'm going to ask Liz back. Angel or Bo? Petiole sampling. Why is that important?
I guess it's more like
accurate to understand what the situation, what is the nutrient status of the vine.
Yes, exactly.
It's more accurate.
But it could be more like seasonal as well. Like if you're taking PBL samples, it's obviously going to be more critical at whatever point of the season. Whereas if you're like you can take a soil sample at any point throughout the year, right?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you can obviously only take petiole samples when there's leaves. And you also don't want to take them super early because it's destructive. So if you're gonna do it like when the shoots are this high, you're gonna take off like 5 leaves to do your petiole sampling. That no more leaves, right? So that poor plant is not going to be able to photosynthesize. So you have to do it when you have a good amount of leaves that you can sample. Okay. Cool. Any questions?
Very important in the season.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks.
So,
See
yeah.
you next week. Alrighty. Okay, so the next thing is just looking at the nutrient inputs and outputs in your vineyard as well. So to ensure long-term vine viability or vineyard viability, the nutrients that you put into the system or into the soil and the plant need to be balanced with those that you're taking out of the system. Okay? So you have losses of nutrients, and there's a couple of ways you can lose nutrients from your system. So can you give me any examples of how you lose nutrients? Sorry?
Leaching.
Yeah, leaching's one. Any others? We spoke about it at the beginning of the lesson, Wolf. Remember when you harvest? The answers are on the next slide if you want to crib.
The berry carry out the soil nutrient during after harvest.
Yeah, exactly.
So the soil nutrient could be reduced if you not input any fertilizer.
Exactly. Does everyone understand that concept? So if I represent it on the board, okay, so here's my vineyard, here's my vine. Oops. Okay, and leaves, and then some berries. Okay. So to grow those berries, you need nitrogen. I'm going to use nitrogen as an example because it's an important one and this is easier to understand. Okay. So here we have nitrogen in the soil. Yeah? Okay. So this nitrogen then moves up your plant and into your berry, okay, because it's needed there. You need nitrogen for making proteins and DNA and chlorophyll and all that stuff. So now your nitrogen is moving up into your berries. Okay, so now all of your berries are full of nitrogen. Yeah? Okay, so all of that soil nitrogen has moved into your berries. Well, some of it. Okay, you with me? Then you go and harvest. Okay, so when you harvest, you take away that bunch. Okay, it's gone to the winery. Okay, they go into tanks. Okay, so this is now where all your nitrogen is. Okay, so this is in the winery. Okay, so all of your berries are in there. Okay, so that's where all your nitrogen is now. Right? So it's gone from your vineyard. Okay, which means that you've lost it, essentially, from that system. Okay, there's no more nitrogen from those berries to go back into the soil. So you need to add fertilizers or compost or whatever back into that system to replenish the nitrogen that's been lost by harvesting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The other way that you can lose it.
Weathering and denitrification.
Yes. So I'm going to put here harvesting, denitrification, weathering. Okay. Some other ones. You actually lose quite a lot of tissue from your vineyard. So in the winter time, all your leaves have fallen off. Okay, so if they fall back to the ground, great. That nitrogen gets replenished in the soil. If someone comes and removes the leaves, I don't think they normally do, but that's a loss. The other thing that we do in winter time is pruning. Yes, so we go and cut all of this off. And you take this stuff away a lot of the time. Okay, so if you take all of those cuttings away, you're losing all of that nitrogen or all of those nutrients that were in those shoots. They get taken out of the system. Okay. Another way in your vineyard as well is a lot of the time you have a cover crop. Okay, this is also full of nutrients. Okay, so If we look at nitrogen and stuff, this is going into here as well, into your cover crop. Yeah? You with me? If you go and mow that cover crop, so if you cut it off and you take it away, you're losing that nitrogen from the system. If you have sheep that are busy grazing and they eat that grass or cover crop that's there, you're losing that nitrogen from the system if those sheep go somewhere else. If the sheep was to stay in there and die there and decompose in your vineyard, that nitrogen would go back into the soil. But that's probably not going to happen. So you're losing that nitrogen from the system. Okay, that's why you need to add it back. Okay, and that's why it's important to measure soil nutrient availability and also your plant nutrient status. Everyone with me? Okay. Great. So there I've put all of the reasons down that you said. Oh, erosion is another one. So erosion, loss of your soil, so you lose your nutrients as well. Okay. So the amount of nutrients removed from the vineyard also varies from year to year and site to site, so it's not going to be the same amount every year, which is why it's important to measure that in the soil. So you can't just assume, oh, it was 100 that I lost this year, it must be 100 next year. It might be different. So you just want to check and make sure before you go and add fertilizers. So you know if you add too much, you could have way too vigorous vines. Yeah? Okay. This table is also just from that book, and it just shows you more or less the amount of each nutrients that are being removed from the vineyard every year. Yeah. So nitrogen, for example, you lose 1.5 kilograms of nitrogen per ton of harvested fruit, and you lose 2.02 kilograms per hectare of nitrogen when you have sheep grazing in the vineyard. So that's just sort of an average per year that you lose. So that's more or less the amount that you would want to put back every year. Make sense? Good. Okay, so coming on to the last activity. This one again is going to be a challenge for you guys. So looking at the assessment of soil health. So soil health cannot be measured directly. You can't just stick a probe in the soil and it tells you it's healthy or not. But you can measure a whole lot of different aspects which contribute to soil health. So you can figure out the texture, you can figure out the structure, you can measure the pH, you can measure the cation exchange capacity, you can measure the nutrient availability, you can measure the amount of water going in. All of that stuff you can measure, and they can give you an indication of whether your soil is healthy or not. Yeah? So Cornell University has published this little table, and it uses 12 different parameters to assess soil health. Okay, so all of these things they have said contribute to soil health, and they've broken them down into physical, chemical, and biological. So in physical, we have soil texture and stone content, so just basically soil texture, soil structure and stability, soil strength. Okay, soil strength just relates to how easy it is for a root to penetrate through the soil. So if you have a very strong soil, it means that your roots can't penetrate very easily. Available water capacity. Chemical, we have pH, extractable phosphorus, extractable potassium, and then your minor element content. Under there, I probably just use cation exchange capacity as an indicator. Biological would be organic matter content, active carbon content, potentially mineralizable nitrogen, and your root health rating. Okay, so this is a lot of information. Some of it you might not be so familiar with, but some of it you are. You have heard of some of this before in our classes. So the ones that we do know, and even the ones that you aren't so familiar with, I wanted you to try and see if you can fill in the table. I blanked it out over there. So this is what it looks like normally. Okay, so there's a lot of characteristics. All right. So this is the soil functional process. So if I say, let me see if I can give you an example. pH. Okay, this is related to nutrient availability and then toxicity of your nutrients potentially. Soil strength is related to rooting, so how easily is it for those roots to penetrate the soil. Yeah, aggregate stability, so structure, stability and formation relates to aeration, infiltration, rooting depth, crusting, all of that stuff. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to block it out again. So you guys can work together as a group, and this is literally the last thing we're going to be doing today. So again, just bring all of your knowledge together to see if you can figure out how those things all contribute to soil nutrient or health. So how are they related to soil health? Yeah, okay. So we'll give it a try and see how it goes, because it is a little bit complicated. You guys can work together. So I have some pins. Where's my pins? As you know, all the answers are on the next page. So please ask me any questions if you are unsure of anything. You guys see? Oh. It seems so blurry from the back. So that way it says all, and I'll put the answers up on the board here as well, so try not to cheat. But if you look at soil texture and stone content, it just says all over there. So basically what it's saying is soil structure, soil texture and stone content is important for all soil functional processes. So texture is one of the most important characteristics. It's important for all aspects, okay, of soil function. Okay. You don't have to copy the whole table down, you can just make little notes. Because the table is there in the slideshow.
know, what have you done with all of them? Just see which ones you are familiar to you, please.
Let your computer.
So if I say to you guys, soil structure, yeah? What aspects of soil health does that contribute to? To aggregate stability. Aggregate, yeah. Porosity, yes. Nutrient holding capacity, yeah. Rooting, yeah.
The ease of erosion.
Yeah. Yeah. So do that as well, yeah. this is the last thing that we're doing for today. So if you guys feel like you want to rather go and think about it at home, you're welcome to do that. But I'll be until the last person. So to answer any questions. If you feel like you want to go home, well, I know it's Friday afternoon. Yeah.
So what is the minor element content in the functional processes elemental imbalance?
That's a good question. Look.
We might go on that point.
It's a negative and a positive charge. It's
Possibly.
balance.
Complicated concept. I'm going to Google it right now and I'll let you know as soon as I find an answer. So maybe it relates to stuff like the carbon-nitrogen ratio. So having that carbon to nitrogen ratio, which is sort of not out of balance, but higher of the one, lower of the other, can lead to having more mineralization versus immobilization. So we have high carbon, low nitrogen. It means there's going to be more immobilization. If you have more nitrogen, less carbon, more mineralization. Yeah. So it might relate to how those two are balanced. Minor immobilization. the balance of nutrients in the soil versus nutrients in the plant. So imbalances between soil nutrients and plant nutrients. So how easily nutrients are able to move into the plant from the soil. So it's not that easy to find more nutrients in the soil than what's in the plant because they just can't move into the plant. So it seems to be a very complicated process. I'm finding it very difficult to find the proper definition. Some people refer to that imbalance between the plant and soil, some between nutrients in the soil, like between carbon, nitrogen, nature. I'll see if I can find more information about what that means exactly.
Well, I have a question
Yeah.
about the soil nutrient, how to affect the fine photosynthesis activity. Is it any
Yes.
relationship between the
So you need a lot of the nutrients. You literally need them for the process of photosynthesis. So stuff like magnesium and nitrogen form chlorophyll. So you can't, if you don't have magnesium, the plant can't make chlorophyll. Chlorophyll can't photosynthesize. So they physically are needed to build chlorophyll. Yeah. Others are needed in the process, so like as acceptors or coenzymes or things like that. Yeah. So let's see if photosynthesis is there. If I can try and think what we need for.
because we are writing an assignment for the photosynthesis.
Oh, yeah?
Talking about the limited factor. So I think the nutrient should be
Yes,
one of the limited
definitely.
factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know nitrogen, magnesium are very important. Potassium is important, and then magnesium is very important. So there they have chlorophyll. So these two columns are structure and these two columns are action. So this is to actually like physically make up that leaf. So what is the leaf? What are the building blocks of that leaf physically? So it needs these things to build chlorophyll, and it needs those things to actually do the process of photosynthesis. So like if you think of me as a human, so I need bones and muscles and fat to make me, but I need energy and food and water to work to actually do the process. So I could stand here as like a dead corpse and I'd still be made out of fat and muscle and bone. So that's my structure. But my actions are like running, breathing, those kinds of things. So for those processes, for those actions, you need nutrients as well. So photosynthesis is an action, chlorophyll is a structure. Yeah. And both, obviously, you need chlorophyll for photosynthesis. So you see all of these nutrients are necessary for photosynthesis to actually happen. Does that make sense?
Cool. Maybe a picture.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at carbohydrates even, so to make carbohydrates, you need all of this stuff as well. So photosynthesis makes sugars, and sugars form together to make carbohydrates, which is stored. So even that is affected by the nutrients. Proteins make enzymes. If you don't have those enzymes, photosynthesis won't happen either. Because you need enzymes in the process. DNA. Yeah. NADPH and ATP. So ATP, adenosine triphosphate. There we go, phosphorus. So to make ATP, you need phosphorus. Very important. And you know, ATP is the energy molecule. So you need phosphorus to do that. NADPH is the nitrogen, so the N is the nitrogenase.
So CO2 fixation is talking about the Kepler cycle.
Yep. So magnesium you need it in that process as well. So you don't need, this is very complex biochemistry. Like if you go and look at the whole process of photosynthesis, it's going to be very confusing. But all of these nutrients are necessary in the process of photosynthesis. So if you're missing them, you'll find your plant can't photosynthesize as optimally, which means there won't be sugar creation. So yeah, nutrients really limiting factor on photosynthesis. Yeah. It's like if you don't have food, you won't be able to process it. You need nutrients as well. If you don't have nutrients, you won't be able to do anything.
Give me a big picture
Good.
in my mind. Yeah, sometimes struggling for some topic which is I didn't know much about it. Yeah, we just know about the environment factor like wind,
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
It's more easy
Yeah.
to understand, but sometimes the nutrients related to a lot of chemistry.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It gets you can get very complicated with these things. Like you can go into hectic biochemistry of pathways and enzymes and all of that stuff. But yeah, just know nutrients are very important. For photosynthesis, you need nutrients, you need carbon dioxide, you need water, you need sunshine, you need light energy. What else do you need? You need oxygen as well for respiration. Oh, you're using photosynthesis there?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
You need. Those are the big ones that you need. And then other things like wind, obviously, not affected. Humidity, it closes the stomata, and you don't get exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, you don't get loss of water. So anything that closes the stomata, anything that closes the stomata or opens the stomata is going to regulate photosynthesis. Opening and closing of stomata has got to do with potassium. So again, coming to nutrients. If you don't have potassium, your plant can't open and close its stomata. So it can't take in carbon dioxide, so it can't photosynthesize. So potassium is important as well.
Thanks a lot.
Are you guys okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Translate.
Oh, can you read that? You can read that. Is that Chinese?
What time you will go to China?
I'm going from the 3rd of October until the 23rd of October.
Month?
Yes, we're in a month's time.
Shandong province.
Jinan. I think it's
Yeah,
in
Jinan. Nearby my hometown.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I've never been to China before.
You know, the first time.
Yeah, it was my first
You
time.
will get very excited.
Do you like
It is exciting. I'm excited.
Do you like to eat Chinese food?
Yeah, apparently the dumplings are really good.
Okay.
Yeah, dumpling. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And the other day when Tim made dumplings, it introduced me to black vinegar.
Yeah.
Black,
Yeah.
never heard of that before. But I could just drink that stuff. It's so nice.
Yeah.
With the dumplings and the black vinegar, it's really good. Oh, it's simple.
The traditional dumpling is better than in New Zealand.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Especially Shandong is located north of China.
yeah.
Dumpling is
Big
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Well, Tim says he always puts on weight when he goes there because he eats so many dumplings. That's all he does. So he's going to eat dumplings.
Do you love spicy?
Yeah, that's spicy food.
Yeah, and spicy food I think is very common.
I say
in
go
China.
to Sichuan province.
Oh, yay. Yeah, I might also come back.
And the noodles very good.
Yeah, I like noodles too.
Yeah, soup noodles soup. Very good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting. I'm just a bit nervous about the language because I don't understand Chinese at all. How do you say hello?
你好，
How do you say thank you?
谢谢。
Please be polite or say hello and thank you.
NIVE 好怎么拼出来？好
HAO
HAO 你 NI 你 is mean you
Yeah?
you
Yeah.
好
Yeah.
It's
Good.
it is a good something like
Try you.
yes like
Right, okay, that makes sense.
Because Guangdong Chris always say Guangdongese, but the north of China use the Mandarin.
Oh, okay.
So it's sometimes the pronunciation is different, a huge difference.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be exciting. And if I go enough times, 'cause if we go every year, then I can start exploring more. Because China's really big, right? It's massive, so you can't really do a lot of tourist stuff. It takes forever to get
And
there.
do you like go to the mountain, climb to the mountain?
Yeah.
Thai mountain is beside Jinan.
Really?
Yeah.
I write that down.
Thai T-A-I.
Thai.
Thai Shan. Yeah. That's too much people.
Yeah, too much people.
Lots of
You sometimes may suffer from the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of people waiting for for traffic for traffic transportation.
Oh.
Sometimes maybe
When
when you
too much car.
if you want to buy some food in a very famous restaurant or shop, you need queue
Oh, really?
for a long time.
Oh my
But
goodness.
there is some like Uber takeaway.
Oh, yeah.
You know it?
Yeah, yeah,
Uber
Uber
takeaway.
Eats.
Yeah, it's you can ask a Chinese student.
Help
They
you.
all they know which one is better, which one is not better.
I'm sure they'll be able to tell
Yeah.
me. So I suppose it's very quiet here in Napier. There's like no people.
Yeah, Jinan is a very noisy city. I can try to Chinese barbecue.
I haven't tried that before, but I've heard it's really
Good.
good.
It's use some stick
Yeah.
to barbecue is different with